You're likely hearing more and more about how profoundly the parent's mood affects their children. We know we should be happy. We look for countless ways to bring us moments of unfulfilled joy, such as alcohol, shopping, maybe food. But what if we had the tools to reside in a calm and peaceful place most of the time? What if your racing mind didn't keep you up at night? What if arguing wasn't the majority of the conversations in your home? All children have the innate ability to connect with their parents. And it should be of no surprise that our autistic children are especially sensitive to the energy that we're putting out. Many of us are paying for expensive therapies, but are we skipping the obvious? We can't just snap our fingers and be happy. So today's episode is about gathering the tools to create and curate more happiness. And to do that, I brought in one of my closest friends. She is Becky Robbins, who started her career as the heart and force behind her then husband, Tony Robbins. In the next chapter of her life, though, Becky has shown the world her individualized brilliance as a remarkable artist, a motivational speaker, and is now offering private retreats. Welcome, Becky, to the show.
Thank you, Betsy. What a thrill to be with you. I mean, I love being with you anytime, but to do this is really fun.
This is just such a fun thing to do. And I love this topic because it seems obvious to so many people. Like, it seems like, hey, just be happy. But it's so tremendously challenging for so many people to achieve it. And I just love that we can kind of take it apart today and prioritize happiness. And that's kind of like where I want to start. Like, do you consider happiness something that you prioritize?
You know what? I prioritize something before happiness because I think it's easier to get back to, and that's like peace, peacefulness,
Yeah.
and some serenity. Because I think out of that you can then grow into. I think happiness is a tall order, don't you think?
I love that.
I mean, it is for me to just say, and I don't have children living with me. I don't have a lot of the things that a lot of people do, especially in this community. So if I'm making myself try and be happy all the time, that just feels like too tall of an order, because I prefer to know that I can just get back to serenity in some kind of form.
That is so good. So really what it is that we're aiming for, because happiness naturally can be a result of once we've been in serenity. But being in serenity is really where it's at, being in that place of peacefulness and calm amidst the chaos. And that's something that we definitely are going to be talking about today, is how to achieve that when we're in all of that. So many of us are dealing with a monkey mind. And why is it that our minds just really want to be busy? Like, what is it about? Is it our society? Is it who we've become? Have we been conditioned into it? Like, what is this mind coming from?
I think all of those things. I think that, if I lived on top of a mountain by myself, I probably wouldn't have all of that. But we're in this collective that is, we love that. We love it and we hate it, right? I think
Yeah.
we love being busy. We love being productive. We're influenced by, I'm cutting out a lot of that stuff right now, meaning like the stuff that I think you and I talked about it recently. Like, I don't watch the news. I don't like anything that's disruptive to me. But the news is a no-brainer. But even like if I'm watching some movie on television and it starts to go sideways, even some movie that's supposed to be great and then it takes a turn. It's like, no, I'm not doing that, because I'm a sponge.
All right. Like, if there's a series that I enjoy and it starts making me feel uncomfortable, I'll just, fast forward a little bit. Because I know it's going to be good. I know it's going to eventually come out okay. But yeah, and that's kind of like the state we need to go to, is either to withdraw and just walk away from it, or to kind of, I don't want to say hide, but retreat until the storm has passed, which is something I have to do a lot, because I live with a son who can be extremely reactive, and waiting for the storm to kind of settle, because I can't stop a storm, but I can help remind myself that this too shall pass, and that it eventually we can come out through the other side.
Yeah, and I think you have to start. I think you have to start upstream. I think that being like I have a practice that I do. I'm so grateful that I found this. It's called heart math, arithmetic heart math, and it's all about. I mean, we have our EEG, right, wave. They hook your brain up. It's an electroencephalogram and EKG, electrocardiogram. Usually those are going crazy in all different directions, right? The way we're created, though, is that our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, which are both of those different things, should be in tandem most of the time. And that's what creates health. I just picked up a book about like the body electric, that we are an electrical system. And so when we've got all those things going that are out of phase, if you're an electrician, and I'm just learning these words, but if you're out of phase, everything's going crazy. So heart math, it's so simple that it almost seems like, how could that even work? But the point of it is that it calms your field, puts the energy around you in such a beautiful space. And I think if you can do that, and the way that you do it, the way that I do it, is I have like something I call my document, which we can talk about in a few minutes too. Yeah. Like it's like sort of like my manifesto of who I am, and it's not an affirmation. It's a bigger deal than that. But I have that in my lap, not because I've not memorized it, but because it's kind of like I don't know. It's like my passy, Yeah, I have that in my. I have it in my lap, and then I take breath. I breathe as if my heart's. I can feel and see that my heart's doing the breathing, like my heart's expanding and contracting, and I inhale like to the count of 10, and then I exhale to the count of 10 while I'm looking at those sentences in my document. It could be something else that someone is looking, or you don't even have to, but it's easy for me to focus then. And then I'm in my heart and I can just feel it. Another way is like I can think about, I have 4 little grandchildren. All I have to do is think about little Hugo, who is out there counting the caterpillars on my bush that are going to turn into butterflies, and that puts me straight into my heart. And then when you get into your heart and then you do that breathing, and if you can do it for like 10 minutes, I like to go longer, but you can do that, and then it's cumulative benefits. Then it starts to be, it creates greater intuition. I mean, I can go on and on obviously about it, but there's a sensor you can get, which you can tell people about, and an app on your phone. And so I just watch that because it's in the green when I'm in that space. And then if it turns red, it's like, shit, I had a thought, that just took me out for a second. Okay, get back into that. Get back into my zone. And when I do that and I get done with that, I just sit there for a few minutes, and that's sort of my go-to thing. I do that even if I've got a million things to do, like I'll just get up a little earlier so I can do my heart math, because now when all the chaos starts to happen, I have a place to go back to that's easier for me to get to.
Right.
And that was really useful for me when I had my family in town for a month. It's like with all these kids, and they're coming and going and cooking and eating and cleaning up and all of that. It was like I just had to go by myself and do my little bit of heart math in the morning.
So I love that. And as I've gotten older, I have really, again, set aside a section of my day. And what I really want to bring in, though, is for the parents that are living in perpetual chaos, the ones that are waking up to the sounds of a screaming child, or how for decades of my life, I've often woken up to head banging or, loud screams. And what I think a lot of criticism when we hear, I meditate or I go into my heart math, that from a lot of parents is, well, easy in your world. Mm-hmm. And I really want us to take a step back, because I'm not saying I have all the answers to how to make it work into your world, how to take what Becky and I are going to be talking about today and to make it work. But I will say that the more you do try to make it some sort of a priority. I know one thing that I used to drive me crazy when people would say, well, when the kids are napping, that's a good time. Like, when the kids are napping, do you know how many things I need to do? I have to get this done. I have to get this done. But there are these peaceful moments. And often what we'll do is we'll pick up the phone and we'll call somebody, or we'll watch something or scroll on our phone. And those are the moments that I would say, catch yourself when you're scrolling on the phone, or when you're picking up the phone to call somebody and say, let's make this about me. Mm-hmm. Let's instead of sharing my anger with my friend right now, or instead of looking for some drama on the phone, let's find a way to focus it back on me. I really do want to talk about the document, because the document is something that I learned about after I also read The Ultimate Coach by Steve Hardison. Can you talk a little bit about your document and why you created that for yourself and what it's done to change everything in your life since you've had it?
Yes, because it has changed everything in my life, and it continues to. It's just sort of this evergreen thing, and I haven't really even changed it because it just is beautiful. So it's sort of like a manifesto of who am I? Who am I as Becky? I call it blood, sweat, and tears process, because then it works. Because otherwise, a bunch of things written on a paper like affirmations, like I'm happy. That to me is like, nah, never going to work for me. So the blood, sweat, and tears part is to go and write down everything, that all the beliefs you have that don't serve you, all the situations that cause you anxiety, all the things people said that were unuseful listenings for you, like listening to people that have an opinion about you, your child, all of that kind of stuff. You write it all down. And he said, I don't want you to try and fix anything yet, because you'll spoil the process. You need to write it all down and keep writing it down. And every time you'll be doing something, you'll be like, that guy driving, write it down. I'm easy to anger. People drive me crazy when XYZ,
Okay.
yeah, and all that. Then the middle part of the process is essential, because I forgive myself. I forgive myself for all of those things. I forgot who I was. Who I am is like this made of God, sacred being that there's one of a kind of this. Those are things in my document, actually, but I forgot that. So like, I'll give you a couple of examples based on my actual real life.
Please.
Before I was, when I first started doing this, and when I help other people do it, it's like the first thing was that I belong here. After my marriage was over and it was a total insanity and all of that, like, oh my gosh, I belong here. That's one of the things that I say in my document. It's taken on a different life now, though, because it's been like a couple of years since I did my document. And it's like, now it's like, I belong here, like where the world is right now. And it's changing drastic and all of that.
So
I belong
drastically.
here right now. It's like, this is where I just got chills saying that, because there's a purpose for me to be here. And listen, I don't like it when someone says, that's the best thing that could ever happen to you. That makes me mad, and I look at the autism community, and that doesn't feel like it's the best thing that ever happened to you. And somehow or other, I call it day 22. On day 22 is after conception, after you've somehow went through 400 trillion different chances of you not even being conceived. Then somehow all those people loved one another or got together in some kind, hooked up somehow. And then you're conceived. And then I looked this all up and did some research on this. On day 22, after the moment of that sperm, that's another one. How did that even get in? On that moment of that sperm getting in there, on day 22, just a bunch of cells, all of a sudden, there's like a tube that happens, and that becomes your heart. And your heart is the very first thing that you have, and it starts beating, and it's like that heart is announcing, I'm here. Here I am. And when we realize that we belong here, so there's no mistake and there's nothing wrong. Here we are. And then another part of my document is I'm one of a kind. I've always felt different. Sometimes when I was a little kid, I felt different. And I'm still different. I'm not like a normal, regular person.
Let's go back to why am I here? And it's certainly a question that, I mean, my spiritual journey started relatively early with Joey, because I was working in that holistic sector, and you tend to meet a lot of individuals who talk about energy. But the one thing that I will say is we spend a lot of time trying to outline and understand our purpose, but our purpose is forever changing. And it's not as if, okay, Betsy, that you are assigned to this, like you are assigned to making this happen in this world. It's going to change. It's going to morph. And you have to be willing to go with that. Like, we lose our identity as women when we become mothers, especially when they're very little. And we start like forgetting who we are. Betsy on the Go, which is my handle, that was just this new platform called Instagram was around, and you need to create a handle. It wasn't like because Facebook was the only one prior to them. So I had, my name there. But with Instagram, we have to create like an identity. And the first thing that popped in my head was Betsy on the Go, because I'm always going from one thing to the next. It was kind of the foreshadowing of my life. And it ended up becoming my TikTok handle, and it ended up becoming kind of the handle of so much that I do, including my website. Autism Odyssey is my nonprofit. But if you notice, I'm not Joey's mom. It's not, the site is not Joey's mom. I am my own individual with my own thoughts and ideas. And although I try to give Joey a voice, that is not all that I am. I have a lot more to me. So how do you feel that mothers, especially because you are a mother, how can they break away from this important role they have into finding themselves again?
I want to go upstream again a little bit. Because
Please.
In a situation where your audience here has found themselves in, I want to talk about victims and villains.
Love this topic. Go ahead.
Because for the longest, I'll talk about myself because I don't have the situation that you do. But I think this is a collective general thing that we have, is that I felt like a victim for a long time. Like, this isn't fair. And I think maybe you can extrapolate that into like, oh my God, what am I doing? I have a son who for a couple of decades was an extreme alcoholic. He's been sober for almost 20 years now. Thank you, God, for that. But I did feel like, oh my God, why me? How could this even be happening? Like, I'm supposed to know everything about personal development and all of this. And I felt like a victim. And I felt like he was the villain. I felt like my former husband was the villain and I was the victim. And that is such a loop because victims need villains and villains need victims. So if you keep that loop going, there's only one way out of that, and just to tell yourself to stop and forgive yourself for forgetting who you are. Back to day 22 is what I say. You've forgotten who you are, that you're a sacred being. And all those 400 trillion chances that you weren't going to be here, there's some divine intention that you're here. You are here, and so are they here. So when I had just had to cut that, like I had to make a decision. I'm no longer going to do that. And since it's a frequency-based universe, and here we go in our energy thing again, but right. I was doing that for a really long time. I was on my way to speak in England. I said, you know what? That's it for me. I'm just cutting that cord, cutting off that safety net I thought I had and didn't. I'm not going to let myself be a victim any longer. I mean, we look at where we are right now in this country, and a lot of people feel like they're victims, and a lot of people think others are villains, and that goes nowhere good. So I will start with that, because your question was so poignant about who am I? I'm a mom. Where am I in this whole picture? Mm-hmm. So you asked me to think about some practices that I have. One of them, of course, is my document, but another one, I call it my esteemable practice. Like, what are those esteemable practices? Here's one that I do that I love. Before I get too tired at night, I take the decorative pillows, 3 of them, off the bed. I turn off the lights except for one little light. I'm not going to light a candle because I'm not going to be in that room. I don't want to start a fire. But I have that because I did one time, so I'm just saying that. But I've got a soft light in there, and I turn the bed down. And then I get my supplements. I have a handful of those, and then I go downstairs and do whatever else I'm going to do, or I go out. But when I come home, then it's like, if you've been in a lovely hotel and you go into the hotel room late at night, and they've got the lights down and they've got the pillows up, the bed turned down. It just feels like you're like being taken care of. So I do that as just a beautiful thing to honor myself. And even when I'm in a rush and like I don't have time, I do it.
Do your rituals.
I do that. Those things that make you feel great about yourself. And I'm sure you must have some, Betsy.
Well, I would say, I do my morning rituals as well with Ron. Sometimes he's still sleeping, but I spend a lot of time. I have my candle. A candle is a central calming place for me. I just actually picked up candles. We've been trying to cut back on our budget a little bit, and I said candles are a non-negotiable. We got
on sale at IKEA. I just bought some.
Tea,
By the
yeah, there
way.
you go. Good. Tea and candles are my non-negotiables. And take some time before Joey gets up. Yeah, I'm getting up early, and sometimes it feels weird to get up at 5 a.m., but it's so vital to me to have that time to center myself before I start the day. It's my favorite time of the day
Yeah.
because not being an alcohol drinker, the caffeine is my biggest high of the day. So my brain works really well. I'm usually texting you, Becky, at 5 a.m. It's like,
And I'm always up at 5 a.m. Yeah, I like that.
but just trying to get myself in a good place. The these kinds of rituals, they're very, very important. And when we can't have them, we definitely feel out of kilter. But the other thing that I want to say to that is that these other things that kind of boost my self-esteem and my love for myself is my relationship with food. And I refuse to go to the I was bad today, I was good today belief system. I choose my diet based on the foods that I feel are the most nourishing that my body wants. Not because I was a good girl, not because I need to lose weight, but because I am giving my body what it craves. And I have no desire, and it's funny because the more I have this belief system, the more I reject and have no desire to have foods that I know are harmful to the body. And if I do, I make peace with that too. You just bless it and be like, whatever, especially if I'm in a place where the only option is something I normally wouldn't eat, but I'll just eat it and bless it. But that as well as exercise and moving my body are the things that I feel like doesn't really cost me anything, and I get tremendous amount of joy taking that responsibility, owning it, and being peaceful with it instead of condescending.
Well, I agree. I mean, when things are going sideways, when back in the day when I had 250 employees and 150 trainers and then we started the whole coaching concept, and one of the first things that we tell them in their training is physiology first. So if someone's out of whack, someone is they're a team leader or a trainer with a group of 20 people, and someone's having a bad time for whatever reason, maybe they're thinking of something that's making them anxious or whatever, it's like stand them up, have them move, drink some water, take some breaths, take a walk, all of that kind of stuff. It's like we always said, physiology first, most important thing. And for me, grounding is really important for me, to be in nature and get grounded. And fortunately, I can put my feet in the ocean. But also, my patio where you've been, I mean, I need green around me, and I need to be grounded. I have a grounding mat that occasionally will put my feet on when I'm sitting in the chair that I meditate in. And I just think that those are the things that you do in advance of anything going sideways, because then you have more of a stable datum.
Taking off your shoes and just stepping on the earth can be one of the greatest things that you
100%.
do. It's one of the reasons I love podcasts, is because I can get that dopamine rush of learning something and figuring something new out, but I can also be walking through the woods at the same time, as opposed to the constantly scrolling and looking down. And I'm not saying that obviously, I mean, that's kind of who I am, is somebody who makes those videos for you to scroll and to look at. But it just overtakes us. And like you started at the very beginning, where you said you don't watch the TV with the drama or the parts that are just gut wrenching, because I try that with my algorithm to be really specific. TikTok has a incredible algorithm, which is why they want to buy it, because TikTok can figure out who you are and what you want really fast. And I really try to train it. Like if I see a video getting on a drama base, I will purposely keep scrolling, because I don't want the algorithm to constantly say, oh, you like drama? How about this one? How about this one? How about this story? So I'm trying to train it always. But then we are, even without the social media, we need to be training our mind as to what it is that we're listening to, what we're paying attention to, what we just metaphorically scroll through life with, as opposed to what we're focusing on.
Yeah, and imagine I mean, if this continues to go in the direction, meaning that people are paying so much attention to the phone, kids, teenagers,
Yeah.
I've got two of them in my life, and they want those phones all the time. And they were here for a month, lived a block away, and I said, girls, can we have a deal? Can we have no phones when we're eating breakfast,
Yeah.
lunch, or dinner? No phones. And they're 13 and 15, so you can imagine, that's like a big ask for those kids. But you know what? They respected me enough to honor that. It bugs me so much that we're so attached to the phone, and like I can't. God forbid you should leave and you forgot your phone at home.
I
You know,
know.
I mean, we rely
I
on them
actually
so much.
find I like get really proud of myself if I do that though. Like, ooh, look at me not attached to my phone. But then I don't get very far because I don't know where I'm going. So
Yeah,
that's
I
the
know.
other
I know
problem.
that-
One thing I want to mention, and this is really important to me because if I was listening to this podcast in my early 30s, say for example, when Joey was young, and I had two other children and I was trying to make it all happen. And we're talking about meditation and we're talking about taking time to relax and all these other things. I used to feel like it was one more thing added to my to-do list. Like okay, you got all these things you need to do, all these people you need to
Yeah.
keep happy, and now you've got to find time to focus on yourself. And that's when we give up. I mean, when we say, well, I just can't meditate, I can't do it, is because we look at it as a to-do item. What's your thoughts on that?
I say pick one thing. Just pick the thing that will give you the most benefit for the time. And I found my one thing. Maybe that's not for everybody. Give yourself the grace. And I think that's the whole reason I was talking about victims and villains, is like, give yourself the grace of letting that go. And maybe, and switch it up sometimes. I found myself lately feeling like, oh my gosh, like now I've done this, now I don't have time to exercise. Now that my day is beginning and people are counting on me. So, switch it up sometimes and just go do something different. And then you don't feel like you're tied to a ritual that is
So
losing its
big.
potency.
I love that because it is good. You could narrow it down, but then also I'll add one more thing. Try to incorporate little things during a conversation. I've been trying to really do this lately where I want to be a good listener. I think as an interviewer, as somebody who naturally likes to interview people, I do like to listen, but I need to quiet myself a little bit more and listen a little bit more, because there's a peace in not having to have an opinion about everything. You and I have kind of talked about this in the past too, is that we feel the need to jump into too many subjects. We feel that we need to get educated on this and know about this. And, well, what are your thoughts on this? And it's okay to not have thoughts on something, or not have an opinion on something, or to not get involved with something. And it's so much better when we don't spread ourselves so thin. Have those things that you're going to stand on the hill for, whatever that hill is, like, that's the hill I'm going to die on. Like, whatever that is, to have those things that are really important to you. But you got to start letting a lot of other stuff go. You have to stop worrying about what's going to happen to so-and-so's relationship, or like, I always laugh when these like megastars have all this drama talked about them. It's like, who has time for somebody else's drama? Like, I can barely keep up with my drama. I do not want to listen to someone else's drama. I don't care if their husbands left them and did this or whatever it is. It's like, this is their life. Why? In fact, let me ask you this. Why do you think people are so in love with seeking that drama?
Well, long time ago, I studied Course in Miracles, and they call it the insanity of the ego. The insanity of the ego. Like, you open they used to say, well, when you had newspapers, like you open the newspaper and you look at the obituaries, you look at the crime report, you look at, it's like, what my mom, if there was a terrible accident, she would load my brother and me in the car and go look at the accident. I mean, what? Or like following the fire engine.
Wow.
Oh my God! How crazy to do that kind of thing. So I think that we're in a conundrum kind of right now. My thing is kind of what you just said, is that I love learning,
Yeah.
And I want to learn, I want to be good at everything. Or I don't always have to be right, but I know a couple of people that just have to be right about something and they're mismatchers. You say this and they have another opinion, and then you want to prove that you know what you're talking about. And I've gotten more. Me too. I've gotten more quiet. I've gone to
Yeah.
a couple board meetings recently and just sat there and didn't say anything. Someone said, "Everything okay?" So I guess I used to be not so quiet, but I don't. Yeah, I don't want to know everything anymore. But I want to learn music, and I want to.
Oh, if you all could see Becky's incredible painting. She has something she's working on. Are you working on something behind you there?
I am.
Oh,
And it's hard. And I started doing something that's really hard, and I'm not enjoying it as much because it's hard. But that's another thing. There's so many things that people are saying, okay, now you have to do hard things, because do things you don't want to do that are really hard and that's really good for your brain. Well, for God's sake, you're all doing really hard
yeah.
things that are good for your brain.
Yeah.
So I started doing this one image on this one board, and I'm bored of it, and it's beautiful, yeah, but it's out of what I know to do.
We have become so luxury focused, so ease focused that we are thinking now it's a bad thing when something is hard, when something that's difficult to do. And this, whether or not it's a physical activity that we have to do, or changing our diets, or trying a new hobby, or even tackling an IEP, any of these things that are happening, hard work is part of who we are. And we're like, this is hard. I don't want to do this. This is hard. Well, but there is nothing more satisfying when you have a difficult project and you tackle it and you figure it out. Like, in my opinion, that's the biggest high of all, rather than having the cash to pay somebody to do it for me. I love the ability to just try to figure things out.
Well, I think, yeah, and it's contextual too. Like, I think you're really good at tech, and I'm like, but you know what? Like, I have a friend who's been working with me. I'm doing a new website that's all about my retreats and my speaking, and it's just like a small little section of what I do. And she's all about Google Docs and all of this. She knows everything about all that. And I was like, you're driving me crazy. But I said, come to my studio, and I'm going to say really fast. I'm going to talk really fast. I'm going to pick your paint, and here's a brush, and go for it. It's like, so my thing that I do that's hard, because none of my images are easy to paint. They're, as you know, they're like full of a ton of detail, and I love doing that. But I know that even when I get stuck, I know I'll get to the other side of it. And like you said, it'll give me pleasure to get to the other side of it. I'll feel good about that,
And then you find yourself waking up one day as a wise woman or man,
yeah.
whoever's listening. And that's the part that I love. I remember it's only really been in the last maybe 5 or 6 years where I have stepped into the wisdom, where I have felt like I have lived a great deal of life. I have been through so many things, and it's a wonderful feeling to feel that confidence of, I did a lot of hard things and I came out the other side, and the satisfaction I get from achieving those things makes up a big part of my self-confidence. So
I think it's more than that, Betsy. I think, and me too. I'm listening to you and thinking about that, because I feel like my soul is nurtured, because we've gone through some really tough stuff, and I'm on the other side of it. And the people that there are a lot of people that I know and respect, and almost every single one, if not every single one, have gone through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And come out on the other side of it with more wisdom, more compassion, just feeling. I heard something remarkable yesterday. I sent it to you, the Robert Edward Grant podcast, where it's just him talking. He asked the question about horrible betrayals and abandonment, and how he'd experienced so much of that. And why does God, source of all that is, give us those things? The response was, we have something that is so sacred that we know, like you said, standing on that mountain, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of who I am. I love who I am, not because I survived it, but because I made the decision to not just survive it, but to thrive, and not to be a survivor, or a victim still, or bitter, or any of that. Like, why me? No fair, and all that kind of stuff. that gets me nowhere, and I spent a long time doing that.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that, because it's a huge sense of satisfaction that I have about myself.
We are always projecting some form of energy. And I want to bring it back into the autism theme, which obviously this show is Autism Odyssey, because I am starting to learn more and more through my son how powerful my energy affects him. And I now am making it such an incredible priority. I should have made it a priority a long time ago. Like sometimes we do things as moms that, well, we'll do it for our kids, but we won't do it for ourselves. But I've made it such a great priority now to really be mindful of where's my energy, because I know how deeply it affects him. And these kids with autism, especially, are so tremendously sensitive. What is it that we can do to kind of become aware? Because we're not even sometimes even aware of what our energy is and how we're projecting ourselves.
There's a conversation about the energetic field that is created around your body, right?
Okay.
I mean, when going way back to the firewalk days, people, the only way people could safely really walk on fire is if they got, and we spent hours and hours in the seminar room getting people all jazzed up and, and a lot of loud music and jumping around and high-fiving and whatever. I mean, when you got out there, I mean, it was to the fire and it was real, and you're going to walk across that. You better be in an altered state or you're going to get burned. And the altered state is created by the bioelectric field that surrounds your body is what protects you for like 4 to 5 steps. And then after that, you're starting to think, and then it's too late. But that field that we have around us, back to the heart math thing, when you're in coherence, is what they call it. There's an actual geometry that's around your body. It looks like you're standing in the middle of a donut, because it's this big, like, circular thing that goes out from your body. And that is your energy field. And that energy field, I mean, it can be contracted when you're in anger or all the stuff I've just been talking about, or it can be expanded, and that expanded field touches other people's field. I was just reading a thing about horses have like 3 times the distance around them of that, it's torus, T-O-R-U-S, that toroidal field around them. That's why horses are so sensitive. That's why they get spooked. It's not because they're crazy horses, it's because they're so sensitive.
Wow.
So this field around us is powerful, and it's always intersecting with somebody. And what I also know is that I'm thinking poorly of someone, on some level they can feel it. If I'm thinking, I was going through some pictures in my garage the other day to clean it out, and I had boxes and boxes, and I just started going through getting rid of stuff. Well, I pulled out one of a good friend of mine. It's sitting right here, and of course she called me. I haven't talked to her in years.
Oh.
Of course she called me. We're so connected. So that I think we're always affecting somebody in some way, including ourselves. And so I think just the knowledge of that, knowledge and wisdom is power when we are aware of that and how we affect one another in such a deep way. And of course, how we affect ourselves. So
I love that. We've given a lot of tools today about finding ways to get into this kind of peaceful state. But I know, and you know this too, because we have the same circle of friends. When we're all sitting around and we are just laughing, like with tears coming down our eyes, because when we're together, we laugh so hard. The first sad, negative moment that comes in is, I don't want this to ever end. And that's my next piece is, what's it mean to sustain when you get into this kind of peaceful spot, knowing that the whole world is built of contrast. Like we are here to experience contrast. We're here to have the rough times that we figure out and that we bounce back from. And just like watching any movie, there's going to be, it always starts off here and then it goes way, way down here. And then by the end of the movie, it's like moved its way up. And that's true with like so many different cycles of our lives. When we are in those moments of dip, how do you personally, or what do you suggest, gives you the hope that you're eventually going to get your emotions back up again?
Because it's non-negotiable for me. because I can't stay there. It
I
hurts
agree.
too much.
I agree.
You know?
I think the more time you spend in happiness, the less tolerant you are of being in that negative spot. That
And like with whom you hang out with, whose business you make your own business. You know, like someone's. I mean, look at politics these days, right? Like I just need to stay. You know, keep my blinders on because I've just. You know, and if I need to open my blinders, it's only because I want to ask myself, is this accurate or not
yeah,
accurate? Or so, but it's not about. I'm not willing to talk politics anymore with people because I don't want to. You know, I don't
right,
want to. It takes me out of
right.
my place of my focus is powerful.
I was thinking of the example of when John died, who Becky knew, my late husband, and when he died, and I remember laying on my bed and having a fit, like obviously this is like months later or whatever, and I'm just like stomping up and down and like, damn it, I'm so mad, I'm so tired of being sad, I'm so tired of being sad, I just want to be happy again, I just want to be happy again, knowing that it was completely my choice as to how quickly I was going to spin this, how quickly I was going to pull out of it, knowing that I was going to have days where I was going to cry a lot, but I also could have, and I remember the advice that I was given is every day you get a couple more minutes of sustained joy. And when you've got those big dips of sadness, something really horrible happens, then the next day maybe you're not going to reside down there. You're still going to dip, but you're not going to reside there for long. You're just going to get better and better and better at building yourself up. And that's really kind of where it's been my whole life, is that I've had these dips, but I've gotten so much better of just saying, I'm not going to stay there anymore. I'm going to find a way to feel better. And sometimes it means calling you my friend.
Well, I was just going to say the same thing about you because you don't stay there very long, and I think that's a beautiful thing about friendship. You know, when you've got a friendship that is a deep friendship that's based in so many similarities of experiences and beliefs and opinions and stuff that I just think it's important to have someone like that to rely on.
Yeah.
And
Neither one of us have ever called each other saying, let me complain about my life for a few minutes. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing to do, because sometimes we do need to dump. But you and I specifically are the friends we'll call when we want to be lifted and we forgot who we really are. You know, I'll call you when it's like, I know I could think differently about this subject. I'm going to call Becky because she's going to help me remember who I am and how I'm able to get out of that.
well, you're way better at that than you just said you are. Let me start with this. A long time ago, I was living in a house in La Jolla, and I had like glass windows, like with the panes, you know, metal panes and everything. Always in a rush. Ran out. I was by myself. No one was around. I ran outside that door. I came back in, and that door hit me smack, like right in the middle of the forehead. Bleeding.
Oh.
It hit me so hard that I fell down. You know, and I was like, oh my God, oh my God. And then all of a sudden I realized, well, you know what? I'm alone here, so I can cry or I just have to go and see what's the damage and figure it out. But I think I've always said it's back to participating in your own rescue. You know,
Oh,
it's like,
I love this. Can
I
you
love
talk
it
just a
too.
little bit about this?
Yeah, I
Because
will, because it's the
I
same
love this. This is
story.
one of my favorite
It's the
stories
same
of yours.
thing. Is that how big of a deep of a hole do you want to dig for yourself by ranting, like wanting? I call somebody and I just want to rant. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to hear it either. It's bringing me down. You know, it's like I'd rather somebody calls me and says
I know.
I need to be uplifted. Fine, let's
That's
do
me.
that. But if you're going to dig yourself into a deep hole, you're the one who has to then climb yourself back up out of it. You know, it's just like. So anyway, the story about rescue is I was going with a whole bunch of Hollywood folks hiking down in like 120-degree temperature down the Grand Canyon to go on a rafting trip down the Colorado River. Fabulous trip. And when we got to the bottom of the canyon, the guides were waiting for us, and they were making us take all of our way too many belongings and pack them into a little rubber, it's like a grocery sack size thing, but you could only pack them half full, and then because they're rubber so that all your belongings don't get wet. So then they decide, here's the rules of the river. And they told you, how to set up your campsite, like basically your sleeping bag, and making sure there's no scorpions in it at night and in the morning and all of that kind of stuff. And then they said, and here's the most important thing. Look at the river. This river is going by so fast. And sometimes it's going to go faster. Sometimes it's going to be calm like a lake. But then there's lava falls. It's like level 5 rapids, and other ones along the way. And you can hang on, or if you're rowing, you push that'll help you stay in the boat. But the chances that you're going to fall out of this boat are like 99%. You're going to fall out at some point. And you can see that we can't stop the boat. So you're going to need to figure out how to get yourself to the shore somehow. They don't have helmets. Get yourself over there without bashing your head on a rock. Climb out and somehow figure out how to get down to where we can pull the boat over to pick you up. In other words, you're going to need to participate in your own rescue. And I love that. I've done that a million times, and I know you have. But when you know that it's up to you to participate in your own rescue, and sometimes that means just get yourself out of a shitty mood, or there's another phrase I love, which is you can't get enough of what you really don't want. That's a good one. When you're
good.
Get stuck in something, and I'm just, like, I wish he would call me, and why doesn't he call me? And but he's a jerk, but why hadn't he? Yeah, no, you can't get enough of what you really don't want. So that's been a good one for me too.
Becky, this is the perfect way to end this incredible hour we've spent together and participating in our own rescue. And hopefully somebody here has listened and gotten inspired to do just that. And I thank you so much for being on today, my dear friend.
I love you, Betsy.
I love you. Everybody else will be back with you next week. Thanks for joining us today.